soon to be entering its 32nd year, and with a 12th mainline entry on the near horizon, now is as good a time as any to look back at Mortal Kombat games as a whole and attempt the unenviable task of ranking them from worst to best. With iconic characters, oodles of lore, and an exceptional ability to craft deeply cinematic stories, Mortal Kombat rightly sits alongside Street Fighter and Tekken as the pinnacle of fighting games. To be clear, for this rundown, handheld versions, DLC, and expanded versions are not included. It's the game as it was released that features. Crossover entries such as Mortal Kombat vs. DC Universe will not be included either. Mortal Kombat Special Forces. It was a noble idea of Midway Games to transplant some of Mortal Kombat's most favourite characters into an action-adventure beat-em-up spin-off, but due to a difficult development period whereby series co-creator John Tobias left the team midway through production, Mortal Kombat Special Forces was released in a sloppy, unfinished, boring, borderline unplayable mess. Swinging Jax's metal arms through bland environments on the hunt for criminal leader Kano was incredibly monotonous. In a rush to get the game finished, Sonya Blade, whose inclusion as a playable character would have added some intrigue, was cut from the game, as was seminal member of the villains team Cabal, a terrible game on release that has aged poorly ever since. Mortal Kombat 4. Mortal Kombat 4 wasn't a terrible game, but it's clear looking back that Midway Games suffered some difficulty in developing with fledgling 3D technology. MK4 is downright ugly. The introduction of melee weaponry was at least a step in the right direction, but characters' restriction to 2D movement, despite brawling in a 3D environment, was jarring. Worse still was the strange inclusion of a maximum damage cap to the game's combo system, automatically stopping a combo if they deal a certain amount of damage. Unresponsive controls and bland new characters round out one of the worst Mortal Kombat games ever. Mortal Kombat Mythologies Sub-Zero. The first spin-off to come out of the Mortal Kombat series was not as ill-conceived as Special Forces, but Mortal Kombat Mythologies Sub-Zero still wasn't great, despite its decent cast and serviceable story, one whereby we control the original Sub-Zero Bihan as he forges a way through blandness to find an amulet for the evil Quan Chi. The main issue here, though, was the unrefined controls brought over from Mortal Kombat's one-on-one fighting. They simply didn't work in side-scrolling and platforming action. Uninspired level design and tedious battles make Mortal Kombat Mythologies Sub-Zero a forgettable entry. Mortal Kombat Armageddon. As impressive as a 62-strong character roster is, there's an element of quantity over quality at play in Mortal Kombat Armageddon. Individual fatalities were replaced by a universal fatality combo system, which quickly grew stale. Also, every character's multi-fighting style was pared down from 3 to 2, one fighting style and one weapon style, rendering an experience which felt like a downgrade from MK titles prior. Still, it's hard to be too discouraging about such a massive roster, even though the fresh antagonist and protagonist felt derivative. Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance. 2002's Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance was Midway's attempt to disown the trilogy of lackluster MK games which came prior. Mortal Kombat Mythologies Sub-Zero, Mortal Kombat 4, and Mortal Kombat Special Forces were firmly in the past, as Deadly Alliance targeted the home console experience as opposed to arcades. This new 3D era sensibly focused on story, with the headline here being that MK's most dastardly foes Shang Tsung and Quan Chi had joined forces to reap hell on the timeline. The fighting wasn't bad too, with a decent roster and multiple fighting styles to each character. Deadly Alliance in the end was let down by an overly simple conquest mode and limited fatalities. Still, there's evidence here that Midway were onto something. Mortal Kombat. The game that kickstarted it all. 1992's Mortal Kombat cemented a legacy through its schlocky, over-the-top gore, colourful cast of memorable characters, and an insidious boss battle against the four-armed monolith Goro. Culturally iconic as well for upsetting parents, teachers, and the like for supposedly inciting violence in youngsters, what Mortal Kombat was actually doing was creating memories for generations of kids hungry for rebellion. Mortal Kombat would be higher on the list, but like the very first Street Fighter, its mechanics and graphics have aged terribly. But the foundation was laid for more seminal fighting experiences to come. Mortal Kombat Deception. Expanding on everything which made Deadly Alliance good, Mortal Kombat Deception, featuring a sizable roster complete with the return of classic characters, plus new weapons, death traps, multiple fatalities, and combo breakers, rounding out an awesome fighting experience, plus a better conquest mode compared to its predecessor. However, Deception loses points for its inclusion of the mandatory Shujinko in Conquest mode. He's easily one of the most boring protagonists in Mortal Kombat history. Still, the series continues to rise. Deception was a more than worthy follow-up to Deadly Alliance. Mortal Kombat 3. Mortal Kombat's third entry was a terrific swan song for the series' original style, and it also represented quite an evolution for the franchise, both tonally and mechanically, albeit with mixed results. The fighting was lively, with fresh run and combo mechanics speeding up the action. The newest characters on the roster added a freshness, although Scorpion's absence was a mistake, which Midway were forced to correct with updated versions of the game. Really, the only downside to Mortal Kombat 3 was its new cartoony aesthetic, which diluted the brutality of the fatalities. Mortal Kombat 2011. 2011's Mortal Kombat served up a reboot of the series, most notably in newly formed developer NeatherRealm Studios' decision to downsize from 3D to 2.5D. The results were stellar though, coupled with a time-traveling gimmick granting ability to revisit modified events from the first 3 games. Mortal Kombat 2011 felt like a revitalizing, back-to-roots experience. X-ray moves were a grisly new addition too. The chance to see an opponent's shredded innards was a shocking, memorable inclusion which never grew tiresome. Perhaps though, Mortal Kombat's 9th entry is most remembered for its excellent cinematic storytelling, cementing the series as the fighting game with the best accompanying narrative. Mortal Kombat 2. Courting controversy in similar fashion to its predecessor, it's hard to understate the strides Mortal Kombat 2 made towards establishing the series into the fighting game's zeitgeist. Sure, the over-the-top blood and gore was still front and center, but there was a depth and intensity to Mortal Kombat 2 which aided its authenticity. Most noteworthy was the formidable boss battle against Shao Kahn, truly a fighter to be reckoned with. Things have never been the same for the series since, and the fighting mechanics, solid at the time, have held up remarkably well too. Mortal Kombat 11. Were Mortal Kombat 11's entry in this rundown inclusive of the gargantuan Aftermath expansion, plus post-launch support which saw new characters, new finishers, and new stages added to the already stellar experience, then 11 might have taken the top spot. As it happens though, the game as released was still brilliant, with NetherRealm putting everything they've learned up to this point to revitalize the series once again. The franchise's storied lore was restuffed to the brim, with gameplay arguably the best it's ever been. Towers mode and superb onboarding tutorials made Mortal Kombat 11 the most accessible fighter there'd ever been too. It's just a shame the overly complicated, downright grindy crypt system left such a sour taste. Mortal Kombat X. A fighting game is nothing without its characters, and Mortal Kombat X delivered arguably the freshest, most vibrant new characters since Mortal Kombat 2. Led by memorable protagonist Cassie Cage, Kotal Kahn, Erron Black, and the deeply unsettling Devourer also deserve a mention. The pressure on NetherRealm to include favorable new characters must have been huge after the death of so many characters in Mortal Kombat 9, but somehow they pulled it off. The fatalities were at their most ruthless too, sometimes to a point where the gore was simply too disgusting to behold. The reintroduction of brutalities, alongside the fleshing out of X-ray attacks, made Mortal Kombat X the most brutally brilliant entry in the entire series. And with that, we've reached the end of this video. Have anything to say? Let us know in the comments below. Also, we upload new videos every single day on Gaming Bolt, so please consider subscribing, as it really helps us out. Thanks for watching.